Hi, I'm Callie. By day, I'm a site reliability engineer at HashiCorp, and by night, I am building a website builder and flexing my full stack development skills. In today's video, we are going to talk about authentication middleware. I have this function here in Go, because I'm writing my backend in Go, to register my auth handlers. You'll see that I'm registering my login handler a little bit differently than I'm registering my user details one. Let's take a look. Login, anybody can log in. So there's no middleware that needs to happen before it to process the request to make sure that the user is allowed to see the request. On the other hand, in order to get user details, the user needs to be logged in. So that's why here we're using a protected route. You can see that we're using a router group to do so. We're calling this router group authorized, and we're making sure that the endpoint has /auth added to it. What does this mean? Well, let's take a look. You can see that the login route is just /login. But when we add this group where it says /auth, it automatically adds this prefix of auth to the route for the rest of the requests. So here, when we register our get user details route, it's going to end up being get auth /user details. Pretty cool, huh? All right. So we want to make sure that the router group for authorized uses our auth middleware, and we're going to pass our logger into that middleware so that way we can make logs. All right, let's go take a look at this middleware. What does this middleware do? Well, from the context, we are going to get a cookie named JWT, and that is going to be our token string. All right. If there's an error, then that means that there is no token string in the cookie JWT, or the JWT cookie doesn't exist. So we need to log an error and abort the request and send a 401 back saying that this request is unauthorized. Let's take a look at what that would look like. So here in Postman, I have everything set up. If you look at my cookies, I have a JWT. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this because I want to use it later, and I'm going to get rid of this cookie. All right, sure. Now I'm going to send the request through, and you can see that we got an error message back, HTTP named cookie not present, unauthorized. And you can see that in my logs that this error was logged from my middleware. All right, that error log is this one here. I'm logging the error, and the message of the log is auth middleware. The message of the log is auth middleware, and I'm logging the error. And that error is coming from the JWT or the c.cookie function. All right. So if there's no cookie named JWT, we're automatically going to return 401 no cookie. Well, if there is a cookie, we're going to continue to the next step. In this step, we are validating the JWT and parsing it. All right, so that is going to be all of this chunk here. So let's go and put that JWT back in cookies. All right, we'll add a cookie. How do I add the name? Oh, cookie one. So we're going to say, I think we should just be able to paste the whole thing in. Yeah, save. All right, let's go back. Add domain. I should have done this backwards, but that's okay. Add a cookie. Save. Let's take a look. Not in there. All right, so let's log in so we can generate a cookie And then let's take a look. All right, so now we have the JWT cookie. Let's go ahead and change something about this. Let's just delete those and then save it. And so now that's going to be an incorrect cookie. So now if we send it through, you can see that we get this user guessed back. Let's take a look at why we don't have an error. All right, we logged in first because we did that first request. Let's look at this request here. All right, if you look at this request here, we're sending it through, we're getting through this part because we have the cookie. Then we're going in this function here and we're trying to parse that JWT. And that JWT function is going to validate that that JWT is good, verify its signature, and then parse it into each token. All right, so if there's an error, all right, or the token is not valid, then we are going to do two different routes. The first route is if we're requesting user details. And the reason for this is my front end just automatically, whenever you try to load the home page, it's automatically going to get user details to fill out the header. I want the header to reflect whether or not the user is logged in. So if the user is logged in, it's going to have the user details for the user. If the user's not logged in, then it's going to have guest user details instead. So I don't actually want it to error when I'm trying to get user details and when I'm trying to hit this endpoint, because it's really just my browser trying to figure out whether or not it's going to load user details in the header. So instead, what I'm going to do is if the request path is user details, then I'm just going to set an info log where I'm just going to say that, hey, we hit the auth middleware and it's a guest user. And that's how I'm going to know that we were hitting that user details endpoint. Then I'm going to return a guest user, all right, where just everything is going to be guest. And then I'm going to abort the request because we don't actually need to go in and get user details because there's no user logged in, all right? The alternative is if I'm hitting a different endpoint and the JWT is not valid, then it would error an unauthorized request. I don't have another endpoint though, so we're not going to check this one. Let's say it worked though. So let's go back. Let's log us in, okay? So we get the new valid cookie, and then let's go over and hit our endpoint. And you can see now, because I'm logged in, I get my actual user details. Let's follow that route. In that route, the cookie is set, the cookie is valid, so we skip all of that and we go straight to here. We are going to extract our claims from our JWT. The cool thing about a JWT is that in it, you can save user information. Now, you don't want to save sensitive data, but you can save the username, maybe the user ID, whatever you want to identify the user in order to continue with your data collection or business logic, right? So here we're extracting the claims. One of the claims is going to be our username. And then we are going to set the username in the context of the request so that we can use it in future functions in our business service logic. And then we will continue to our next in middleware. So that, in a nutshell, is how we set up our authentication slash, I guess, authorization middleware to be used for our user detail route. And now it's all set up for us to use for other pieces of authentication, like in our website builder when an admin needs to be able to add content to the website. This middleware is already set up and ready to go for us. Thanks for watching.